Happy Friday, everyone. Hope you're having an excellent week. The weekend is almost here, and you know what that means? It is 9:30 Pacific Standard, and it is Finance Fridays. Thank you for joining. Feel free to grab your favorite caffeinated beverage, sit back. I'm going to start the intro, and then we're going to dive right in.
It's Finance Friday, I sure in the spot, talking loans, home deals, giving all I got. Rates, hacks, facts, yeah, we keep it real. From first homes to refis, helping you seal the deal. Mortgage talk, but we make it fly. No jargon, just the truth, I'll tell you why. Finance Friday, get your questions in. With Assured on the mic, let the answers begin. Let's break it down.
Good morning. Welcome back. Hopefully you guys are having as good of a Friday as I am. Let me get some music going. Let's try this one again, I think. Let's try a different one. I'll stick to lo-fi. All right. Anyway, welcome. Thanks for hanging in there. Thanks for joining me. And today, as the little ticker says at the bottom, as well as the title, we are going to talk about the 5 biggest mortgage myths debunked. We are going to debunk them one at a time because there's a lot of misinformation out there. So I want you to have the correct information for yourself as well as anyone that you may know. Right? Be the wise person in their group, so to speak. So myth number 1, and this one I think I've made a couple videos, a couple shorts on, but the first one is that you need 20% down to buy a home. That couldn't be further from the truth. We have normal programs out there, not even down payment assistance programs, but normal programs, VA and USDA, where you could buy a home with 0 down. Yes, for VA, you have to be a veteran. Yes, for USDA, you need to buy in an area that is USDA approved. But just right off the rip, you can buy a house with as little as 0% down. If you're a first-time home buyer, you could buy a house with 3% down conventional. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or not, 3.5% with FHA. And then not to mention, we have down payment assistance programs within FHA and conventional that we can put you in. Now, there is a comment. Hey, Shammy asks, what about physicians? So yes, doctor loans. You can find some lenders and banks out there that not only will have a loan specific to doctors, but when it comes to doctors, the biggest issue is more than likely student loans. And that's what those doctor and physician loans go benefit most from, is that they don't account for that. So you can qualify for a bigger house, knowing that, you know, your student loans aren't going to be there forever and your pay will probably substantially increase once you're into that position full time. So good question. But yes, so answer number 1, or myth number 1 that we just debunked, is you don't need 20% down. Myth number 2, you need perfect credit. Once again, couldn't be further from the truth. Does it help if you have perfect credit? Absolutely. Are your rates going to be better? Absolutely. Because when it comes to mortgages, it's all about risk. The better your score, the less risky you are, which means the better your rate's going to be. The worse your score, you can still get a mortgage, but your rate might be a little bit worse. It's just a matter of risk, right? The bank's going to give you $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. But at the same time, based on your credit score, which is how well can you handle that money, they're going to give you a rate that kind of coincides with that. So keep that in mind. You don't need perfect credit. Now, what credit do you need? Well, we know conventional, you need 620 or higher. 620 is not that hard to get to. Just make your payments on time and you should automatically be there. But let's say some things happen, life circumstances happen, you're using as much debt as you have, and it's, you know, it might push it down lower. Well, FHA loans, you can go down to 500. That's right. Not 580, not 680, 500. Once you get under 580, however, with an FHA loan, you got to bring 10% down. That's the only drawback. Remember, once again, mortgages are all about risk. So with risk, you got to offset it in one way. If your credit's a little bit worse, 510, 520, 530, you got to bring more skin into the game. And then that lets the bank know, hey, we're willing to take a risk on this person. Right? So you do not need perfect credit, but it does help. And then I did post a video, or I don't know if I talked about it in a previous live, about how to increase your credit score? Go ahead and take a look, or feel free to reach out. We can work through that together. Myth number 3, renting is always cheaper, or vice versa. Now, here's the deal. I believe buying is better for most people, but that doesn't mean it's true for everyone. Vice versa, flip that. I also don't think renting is the worst idea, right? Your life situation is going to determine whether or not it makes more sense to rent or to buy. And I believe I covered this in a previous video as well. Think about what's going on right now. Are you staying in your current position at work for the next 2 to 3 years? Do you have enough margin to take on not only a new mortgage that might be the same or a little higher than your rent payment, but also account for any unforeseen costs? For example, something breaks, a pipe leaks, and you got to call someone in. If so, yeah, buying's probably the better option. But if you're barely going to scrape by, if you're going to live paycheck to paycheck, you don't even know if you're going to have this position in a year because you might want to get transferred up to Texas or Florida or California, it might not make sense to buy. However, if you choose to rent that out, that's a different story. But in general, if you're just buying somewhere to live, you're not really thinking about the investment capability, it might not be wise to buy because you've got closing costs when you buy, you got closing costs when it sells. You're probably going to come out in the negative if you're only going to stay for a year or two. So renting is not always the cheaper option. Buying is not always the cheaper option. And what you should do depends solely on your life situation. So keep that in mind. So that's number 3. Myth number 4, you should buy the biggest house you can. Now, if you joined me or you watched last week, you should know this is something that I am vehemently against. Just because I or the bank tells you you can afford a $400,000 or a $500,000 home, that doesn't mean you should. And the key is, and some of the things we talked about last week, property taxes in some counties increase every year. Insurance increases every year. Your job stability might be in a situation where it may be seasonal, and you don't want to put yourself in a position now that your house broke, where yeah, you might be able to pay the mortgage, but God forbid something happens and now you're out of luck. So the 4th myth, you should always buy the biggest house you can, couldn't be further from the truth. Just like what we talked about in the last myth, number 3, every situation's going to be different. So consult me, consult a loan officer. Let's figure out what's the wisest house you should buy. And to round it out, myth number 5, the mortgage process is too complicated for first-time home buyers, or any home buyer at that. Once again, this is going to depend solely on who you choose to align yourself with for the home buying process. That's true for the realtor and for the loan officer. And I can tell you without a doubt, the better your realtor is, the better your loan officer is, the more work they do for you before you even go step foot to look at houses, the easier the process is going to be. I have a couple videos now about the purchase process from start to finish. I took a couple of different avenues on the different videos, but it's pretty much the same thing every single time. You talk with someone like me, we figure out what you can qualify for, you understand what the payment's going to be, you go buy the house. Yeah, you got to send in a bunch of paperwork and sign some documents, but the actual process itself, as long as you're working with the right team, you've got the right people behind you, should not be that complicated. It should be pretty simple, in fact, to the point where you've got a week or two to just kind of hang out and relax before closing, right? You don't want to be working with someone who's stressed up until the day before and you don't even know if you're going to close tomorrow. No, work with a good team, and that goes for the real estate side as well as the loan officer side. And what I mean by that is I had a purchase a few months ago that had some HOA and title issues. And if it wasn't for the realtor being a rock star and absolutely going above and beyond the normal duty, and that's partly because she used to be a real estate attorney, so she knows everything that there is to know about that side of it, we would have not been in the situation we were, right? If it wasn't for her, the deal probably wouldn't have gotten done. But because this borrower had teamed up with an excellent realtor who knew the job to an unbelievable level, we were able to close. Everything went fine. So align yourself with the right team, and you will see that the purchase process, the home buying process, or the mortgage process is not only not too complicated, but it should be fairly pain-free. So, and if you're finding that that's not the case, reach out to me. I'll take a look. I'll see if I can guide you in a different manner. So that's all I got for you guys today. As I said before, we talked about the 5 mortgage myths. We debunked them live here on this Finance Fridays. As always, if you have questions you want me to answer, shoot me a message, leave a comment, and I will try to get to it in the next one. Or join me live every Friday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, where we will, answer any questions that do pop up live, like the physician one. One other thing, next week I will have my first live guest, and I'm super excited for it. So if you're someone who is aged 25 or younger thinking home ownership is not possible, you'll want to stay tuned for this guest. He will be able to show you how it's not only possible, but it's not too bad. So anyway, take care. Have a great weekend. Enjoy week 2 of the NFL preseason, which kicks off tonight. And I will see you guys next week, but I'll also see you in some other updates along the way. Take care.